Welcome everybody, my name is EruptionFang, and this is episode 5 of Nomad of Nowhere, titled The Kindness of Strangers. And this episode, my god, is this exactly the type of episode that I wanted? Alright, but let's start from the beginning. So the Nomad is on the run from Toth and Scout, who have yet again continued to follow his trail successfully. Luckily for the Nomad, however, he comes across a friendly Undertaker who's willing to safely smuggle him through the dangerous parts of nowhere. The Nomad agrees, however, when he awakens from his coffin, he is not safe, but rather smacked in the head by a shovel. The Undertaker is not friendly, but nor is he the Nomad's usual enemy. Instead of wanting to capture the Nomad for its bounty, the Undertaker is more so interested in its magic and how it works. He asks all kinds of questions, most of which we don't actually get an answer to. How living are his creations? Can these beings actually be classified as having a life? Do they have free will? Are they slaves to whatever the Nomad says? And how intelligent are they? That one gets slightly answered, as they're not very smart. They can clearly understand the question, but aren't intelligent enough to give the correct answer. Something we do get confirmation on is the Nomad's inability to bring life back to where it has already left. In other words, can't bring the dead back to life. Any part of the dead, even if only just the skull. However, the magic does have to go somewhere. The thought of whether or not the Nomad could or couldn't bring the dead back to life did cross my mind at some point. I don't recall if I ever talked about it in a video, but nonetheless, the idea had crossed my mind earlier on. It still doesn't necessarily explain the ranch hand's arm, because that bounces back and forth between living and inanimate, so that still does make me curious. What intrigues me more is, where does the magic go if there's nowhere for it to go? Everything that the Nomad has since brought to life has been in his immediate vicinity or in his line of sight. So say if the Nomad were trapped in a room with absolutely nothing in it, what would happen if he clapped his hands? Would it just go out and find something to be randomly out in the world? Or would it be trapped with him? I'm just like the Undertaker at this point. All the questions, I just want to experiment to see what would happen and what wouldn't happen. I relate to him a little too much. So the Undertaker informs us that no one in Nowhere can do necromancy anymore, and he brings out a spell book. However, he can't read most of what's in it. He mentions the Yadala and how they're the only people that still talk about the days before El-Ray and the days where magic still existed in the world. For those of you who don't know, Toth and Null are Yadala. It's their race of people. So there's multiple things about that line. The first thing is obviously the Yadala. By the sounds of it, magic wasn't necessarily anything unique. But what it seems like to me right now is that the Yadala were the people who could possibly do magic and used these books, which leads to the second thing. El-Ray. He's the king of Nowhere is what I assume. Above Don Paragon, above everyone else, he's the top of the chain. So why would the Yadala talk about the days before him and when there used to be magic? Why lump those two things in the same statement if no correlation between them? I think El-Ray may be the reason magic went extinct, hence why he's the king. However, if that is the case, then why are people like Toth and Null working for Don Paragon, who works for El-Ray? In episode 3, Scout does have this ambiguous statement that she's doing it for them.
Well, at this rate, she's going to give my people a bad name.
The Yadala are her people too. She's doing it for them.
She's doing it for the Yadala. What exactly is she doing? That's the weird blanket mystery of Scout's statement. So Toth is doing something for her people, we just don't know what it is and why she's chasing the Nomad at this moment. But there is definitely a correlation of her obsession of the Nomad and her people. Back to the episode. So the Undertaker once again questions the Nomad's creations and their purpose for being. If the Nomad is so emotionally attached to each of his creations, then why bring them to life in the first place if he can't protect them? That is, of course, unless their entire being is meant to protect him. Does he bring these things to life because they're meant to keep him alive? Who knows? So before the Undertaker is capable of dissecting him to find out what makes him special, Big Jib interrupts with a dead friend. The music box, however, manages to grab the skeleton key and set the Nomad free. However, the Undertaker refuses to allow the Nomad's power to go to waste without first unlocking his full potential. The music box attempts to protect the Nomad, however gets thrown against the wall, shattering and dying. He demands the Nomad show him his magic, and he does. In a single clap, the Nomad brings everything to life to attack the Undertaker. However, before they have a chance to kill him, the Nomad calls them all off, taking the higher road. He takes the spellbook as well as the dead music box and buries them together. And the Nomad must continue on trying to live, or whatever his goal is. And this is exactly what I wanted. Everyone's like, oh, the Nomad's so nice, he can't actually hurt anyone on purpose. What a sweetheart, he's just misunderstood. Meanwhile, I'm over here waiting for that wanted poster version of himself to come out, and because of this episode, it can only change minds to think the same as I do. The Undertaker only killed 2 of the Nomad's creations before he got angry. I can only imagine that it's the progression that got him to the wanted poster. The Nomad very easily overran the Undertaker before he gave up, but what happens if someone isn't so easy to defeat? What if the guy had managed to kill the other 6 creations the Nomad brought to life? He would only get angrier and bring even more things until he reached that level of anger that got him his bounty. I'm just waiting for all the non-believers to now think, maybe that wanted poster wasn't a lie. And in this episode, I would wager to say that his emotions do rule his magic. He was very angry when he brought everything to life, and everything was equally as angry. It seems like most of what the Undertaker had hypothesized about had some weight behind each of his statements. The Nomad's creation seemed to be an extension of himself. The Nomad was angry, and thus his creations were as well. However, it seems perhaps that they don't mirror the Nomad all of the time. The initial creation may dominate their overall mood. The Nomad became sad and started to cry, however the objects continued with the level of anger they were created with. Another thing the Undertaker theorized about was, are they just slaves doing his bidding? And that statement doesn't necessarily seem to be untrue. Like, technically speaking, it's kinda true. Snap of a finger, they all backed off. Something that didn't happen with the water wheel, as he just kept clapping. So it seems like the angrier he gets, the more powerful his magic becomes. That is until he learns that the power of friendship and happiness is stronger for some reason. Probably that's what'll happen. But anger is cooler. Another thing to mention was the spell book. If you could read it, you could do magic, is what I would assume. But most people, however, can't read it. He buried it alongside the music box, so he's not learning anything new anytime soon. However, that's not even the point. The point is that magic can seemingly be revitalized in nowhere. People had used it in the past, people could possibly learn how to reuse it in the future. As of now, we don't know if the common man could do it, or if there has to be something special about you, a la the Nomad, to then be able to use magic. The Undertaker did mention how he wanted the Nomad to learn all these new things, which offer a ton of opportunities. Probably no time in the near future, however. I would think that at some point down the line, the Nomad is going to return and take the book. The Undertaker did mention bringing the dead back to life and how the Nomad could possibly learn how to do so, perhaps if he does return for the spell book, he is also going to bring the music box back to life as well, as sort of like a test. Honestly, this episode was just everything that I wanted. So many questions, so many answers, the Nomad's power and his evil meter. Just like, this is my type of episode. The best thing is that the last episode I said how there was nothing to talk about, that I needed at least one topic about the characters, the world, something, and I didn't get it last episode. But then this episode gave literally everything to talk about. The world, the Yadala, the Nomad and his magic, as well as his evil meter. Almost everything you could talk about aside from maybe Toth and Scout happened this episode. I think the show so far is doing a really good job at keeping the interesting meter up. The Nomad was a mystery, as were his powers early in the show, but then we learned that there wasn't really anything much to his magic aside from bringing things to life. That alone can get boring if all he does each episode is bring the same few objects to life to deal with a problem. However, the show has done a good job at opening doors slowly but surely for more possibilities, more magic, more people who could potentially learn magic. It's no longer a one-trick pony. The Nomad obviously has yet to gain anything new, but the fact that they've presented the opportunity for it to happen is what I like this early. I think the show's doing a good job during these plot episodes and these world building episodes at slowly feeding us information to keep our interest growing. Like, the show could have been a slapstick, no story, new problem, new wacky and zany antics each episode, but they're not. They're giving us depth with the world and the characters, and I love these types of episodes where I could just talk about and discuss everything. But not every episode's gonna be like that, and I'm fine with that. So for now, be sure to let me know what you guys thought of the episode down in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. Consider becoming a sponsor over on Patreon. It's only $3 a month to get all the content early, and it really does help out the channel. Be sure to follow me on all my social medias as well, and I'll see you in the next video.